It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Writers Grindline. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my defense partner, Devin Little. Devin, how's it going? We've got Red Wings hockey, 2 games in the books. Regular season is well on its way. We have a win and a loss. We'll talk about it. But before we get jumping in here, we have an announcement to make with our new Substack that we've got introduced with the Hockey Writers. We have recently expanded our offerings with the Substack from our normal one dedicated to every team, as well as a general one for each day's best articles. As a Red Wings fan, you don't want to miss any of this great content we produce, and our Red Wings Substack makes that possible. Sign up to get all of Hockey Writers Red Wings articles delivered directly to your inbox multiple times per week. We even have offer now a premium subscription that gives you access to exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. It includes game chats, post-game reports, specialized articles, live Q&As, and a lot more that we're going to add to it. Join now to get a discount on an annual subscription. Sign up link is below in the description. And, you know, it's a lot of fun. We're going to be doing this throughout the season. We, of course, have the free one, so you don't have to pay. But like I said, there's a lot of extra stuff that you can get to. There's still low $8 a month. You can get all that details in the sign up description below. So, but let's get into this, though, because it's exciting with the Red Wings starting. We've got, like I said, we're recording this right after a win, with our first win of the season. Home opener. There's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement throughout that game, Devin. So let's get right into our one good, one bad, because I'm sure it's going to come up in the good. There is some bad, I guess we could talk about. But Devin, what's a good and a bad from this past week that we see 2 Red Wings games in the books for regular season?
Let's just get this out of the way right now, right? How about Alex DeBrincat scoring 2 goals in his home opener, playing for his hometown team? First star of the night too, right? He also scored in their first game against the Devils. So he's got 3 goals in his first 2 games as a Red Wing. Obviously only 2 games, but if you were worried about him not scoring without Patrick Kane, looks like he'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely DeBrincat's gonna be my one good. My one bad, I will say, obviously losing to the Devils, a little bit of a bummer. But just in general, I will say goaltending actually. Ville Husso, now back-to-back games where he's posted a sub 900 save percentage. Now obviously that hasn't really killed the Red Wings. Through 2 games, they won tonight's game. And then they were in the game with the Devils the whole way through, so goaltending hasn't really held them back. But you definitely want to see Husso's numbers round into form over the next couple of weeks here, because it's good. Looks like the Red Wings have some firepower to play with this season, but they can't expect to outscore bad goaltending or below average goaltending throughout the season. So and obviously we're expecting Husso to be like a bona fide starter this year. So he's not going to be that if he's regularly posting sub 900 save percentages. So excited for DeBrincat. Hope to see more from Husso over the next couple of weeks. But I mean, all in all, you can't be too upset about the Red Wings' first 2 games this season.
Yeah, I'll go with my good is the not new goal song, but reintroduced goal song from Joe Louis Arena. It's great, and I love the actual song after the horn as well. You have the Chelsea Dagger in Chicago. We've got this one too. Could get annoying for opposing the opposition. I can't remember what Eminem song that's from. I know it'll come to me, but it's great. I love it. It's nice to hear that goal song, the goal horn again, because it was a different one before this. So that's a good for me, and I'll echo DeBrincat. We'll talk about him, I'm sure, in our first segment. But the bad, I was going to say, goaltending is one, but the defense a little bit suspect a few times, even in the Tampa Bay in the Lightning game. Allowed a few odd man rushes. Like I think all in like one shift, there was a couple breakaways, and on guys that these guys you don't give breakaways to. Brandon Hagel scored on the breakaway, and he's probably going to score that 80 to 90% of the time. And Stamkos had a couple goals in the game too. You can't give these guys those prime high danger chances, as they're most likely going to score on them. And not just on, average goaltending. On really good goalies, they'll probably score on those. So, they've got to clean that up, defense and goaltending, which we've talked about on the show before. Goal scoring, not a problem. They had scored 5 or 6 with that really last second empty net goal by Moritz Seider. But 6-4 still won the game, but you're not going to win those games all the time. You shouldn't, if you score 5, you should not allow 4 of them. We'll see how that'll be cleaned up. We're 2 games in. That'll of course be adjusted. All right, let's move on to some takeaways from those 2 games. We already kind of gave a few of them, but let's dive into a few more. Devin, what are your overall thoughts over these last 2? We talked a bit about in the one good, one bad, but lots of stuff going on. This past game, all the newbies factored into the scoring. I got a couple from DeBrincat, which we said. JT Compher got his first as a Red Wing. You got, in the last game, DeBrincat scored as well again. Daniel Sprong has a couple goals. Yep. This is a guy we talked about. There was like, is he going to be able to do what he did on the Kraken in that 4th line role? He's been elevated so far. But what do you think? Most of the takers are probably going to come from this last game because it's fresh in our minds. But what are some of your thoughts here?
I guess the biggest takeaway I have is kind of more just focused in on the forward lines. It sure looks like Steve Yzerman's efforts to really improve Detroit's depth in the offseason, it looks like it's worked. Not just in terms of scoring. Obviously, it's great to see DeBrincat scoring. It's good to see Sprong scoring. Those guys are both guys that were brought in specifically to provide goals. Sprong in more of a depth role, like you said, and he's doing the dang thing. But it's not just the goal scorers. Andrew Kopp, Michael Rasmussen, and David Perron look like they've got some good juju going in terms of being just like a good cycling line that can wear down the opposition. Even the line of Veleno, Costin, and Fisher looks like a really solid 4th line as well. Similar type of thing, energy type of line. And then you've got your offensive aces in the top six that have come out of the gates running. So that's really good. I also want to say too that they played 2 really good teams right out of the gate. Right, you have the New Jersey Devils and the Tampa Bay Lightning, both of which are teams that I'm sure people have, different people have bets on to win the Eastern Conference this year, right? And they played tight against New Jersey. They did lose, but it was they were in that game the whole way. Just a couple bounces, and the Red Wings win that game. And then the Lightning, they obviously won, and they won. I dare say decisively too. So 2 Eastern Conference heavyweights, and the Red Wings look like they belong with them. That's huge. And then last but not least, I think defense kind of looks more or less like how it did last year in terms of Jake Wallman and Moritz Seider clearly being like the top guys. And then everyone else is kind of a committee type of deal. Some are better than others. Jeff Petrie did not look good against the Devils. He wasn't as bad against the Lightning. I thought Shane Gostisbehere has looked really good on the Red Wings power play. He's going to add a good jolt to that over the course of the season. I think honestly, if you really have to summarize everything, all the guys that Yzerman brought in the offseason, we lament the fact that there's no room for the kids on the roster, but the veterans are holding up their end of the bargain. They're doing what they were brought in to do, and the Red Wings look like a better team for it.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention is that we talked about that top line of being Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat, and Lucas Raymond. Keep them together. They have been dynamite in the first 2 games. It's it's like Raymond scored his first of the season this in the Lightning game as well. Dylan Larkin could have had what 2 or 3 goals in that game
Oh
too. He
yeah.
had I don't know how many
Oh yeah.
chances. He could have scored on that other one he gave DeBrincat the pass, but most likely it's more of a chance of scoring if you're giving it to DeBrincat than Larkin scoring. Although, I mean, he might have scored if he shot it as too, but yeah, that line is just they were I don't know how many chances they had in that game. But I'm going to say they probably had a majority of them, and they've looked really good in the first 2 games. And even if they do break them up, I guess they could, because Daniel Sprong, I believe, was kind of subbing in sometimes on that line as well. But I think for the most part, they should be keeping those 3 guys together, especially if you're getting goals from JT Compher on the, later on, or like the depth we've talked about many times throughout our matchup, segments, that the Red Wings depth is superior to a lot of teams. And it's showing, I guess most of the guys that are scoring are in the upper half of the lineup, but so far it's looking like they're spread out pretty good, which it's going to serve them well throughout the season. So that's the biggest thing that stood out to me was that line. And I'm excited because I think I was a proponent of having that line together. So I'm happy about it. But yeah, I agree with that defense. I mean, it's going to be by committee. It's all, the first 2 games, definitely Wallman and Zator were the top, but they went 11-7 in this past game. And with Obley Matter drawing back into the lineup, and it's good to have that defense depth. You can do that, but that also pulls one of your forwards out to accommodate that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of juggle those veteran defensemen throughout the season, because you don't want them sitting for long periods of time, because I mean, they're all NHL capable. They're not guys who are like, well, we don't want them in the lineup, because Mata was really good last season. You don't want him sitting all the time. But yeah, we'll see how that all kind of plays out. All right. Before we get to our, we're going to shift to prospects, and let's talk about the Grand Rapids Griffins, who started their season this past week as well, and they also finished a game today and won. They are 2-0 to start the season, and this past game saw Sebastian Cossa get his first start and play pretty well. First star in that game, 41 saves on 43 shots. And look, well, just by the stat line, looked pretty good. And then Simon Evanson also got his first goal of the season. Devin, your guy that Arsen Sarnik that you said was going to lead the scoring, he's looking like that's a good bet so far in his first 2 games. It's looked pretty good. So you were there for the first game of this two game set. What are your thoughts of the Griffins so far?
First and foremost, between Cossa in tonight's game and then Michael Hutchinson in the home opener, looks like goaltending is going to be real good this year. Both guys posted north of 40 saves. That also, there's another way to look at that. Good on the goalies for making all those stops, but also what's up with the defense allowing that many chances, right? And it was against the Colorado Eagles, the Avalanche's team. And I don't know if you know anything about the Avalanche's prospect pool, but it's not that full. So it's not like they were playing against, the stacked team that, they knew were going to be a handful. So the fact that the goalies were that overworked is maybe a little concerning, especially when you think about how much talent is on the Griffins blue line. But whatever, they won both games at the end of the day. Who cares, right? I thought that a couple of players really stood out to me, at least in the game that I was there for. Albert Johansson, obviously didn't make the NHL roster, but he plays a pro game, let me tell you. He's taking hits to make plays. He's doing things to buy time and maintain possession in the offensive zone. And then he's even showing that he's got a little bit of a physical edge to him, and he's not the type of guy that you would think has that in him. He's not, he's not Elmer Soderblom, who's 6'8", right? So he's got, a lot of different facets to a game. There's a reason why I really like this player, right? Simon Edmondson continues to look like one of the best players just in that league in general. He's the type of player that There's a couple shifts just in that game I went to where he'd have the puck in the defensive zone, carry it through the neutral zone, and then he'd attack like a forward. Like he has that kind of moxie, that kind of confidence, and just that kind of skill to be able to, be that kind of that needle pusher for the Griffins. And I guess that's kind of why he's down there, right? To eat up all the minutes he can and to be a difference maker for the Griffins. Elmer Soderblom, again, just like Edvinsson, looks like one of the best players just on the ice whenever he's on the ice. He's clearly, he's obviously really huge, but he also stands out just in terms of how well he plays and the things he can do in tight spaces. And then also just the overall fight of the team. Like I said, both games the Eagles outshot and even like outplayed the Griffins for stretches of time. In the game I went to, the score at the end of the second period was 2-1. The Eagles were up. Then the Griffins came back and won it 3-2. They have some fight in them. They're last season they would get down and it just seemed like it was a slog to try to get back into it. Game one, they're down by a goal after 40 minutes and they immediately tied up 7 seconds into the third period and they come out with a W. That shows a level of fight that just wasn't there last season. That's what you want to see. And then also just kind of in general, kind of really like their lineup, just kind of their combination of players who are playing with who. Cross Hannes and Marco Casper together on one line. I kind of like that a lot. I'm drawing a blank on who their other winger was, but I know altogether that was a good line I liked. And Amadeus Lombardi getting a good look as well. I could go on and on, honestly, but 2 games in, it looks like the Griffins are going to have a good season ahead of them, just like the Red Wings are, and that's exciting not just for the Red Wings' future, but also for fans here on the west side of Michigan.
For sure. And that line of Zarnik, Hirose, and Jonathan Berggren. Berggren had a couple assists in the game, this most recent game. And yeah, it's Casper, Lombardi, no points yet on the season. Same thing with my guy Cross Hannes, no points yet. But like you said, they look good. So, those points will come eventually. And they are a loaded team, and it is surprising that their defense wasn't better because they do have a lot of good guys on this team. But it's good. The goaltending is good, especially Cossa, because everyone was worried about him. First game, only 2 goals against, bunch of saves, good start. So I mean, we'll see how his the rest of his season goes. But he's got 1 win under his belt now. And on his way to what we were predicting this how many wins he'll get. He's 1-0 at the start of the season. So, all right. Well, before we get to our comment corner, we're going to remind you of our Substacks again. We have recently expanded our offerings with the Substack, dedicated to every team, as well as a general one. As a Red Wings fan, you don't want to miss any of this great content we produce, and our Red Wings Substack makes that possible. Sign up to get all of our Hockey Writers Red Wings articles delivered directly to your inbox multiple times per week. We even offer a premium subscription now that gives you access to exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else, including game chats, post-game reports, specialized articles, live Q&As, and a lot more. Join now to get discount on the annual subscription, and a sign-up link can be found in the video description. All right. Well, let's move on to our comment corner, which Don, you're just a fixture. You should come on the show. It's at this point. But you've got another great question here. We mentioned there's 7 defensemen that they've got. They're doing that 11-7. I don't know how many times they'll do this throughout the season, but they do have 7 now. Who's going to be off the roster at the end of this season? I mean, I guess we're assuming one of them will be. For the purpose of this question, we are assuming that. So, Devin, what do you think? I mean, who's off the roster at this point? I mean, we keep saying we want the prospects to get into this lineup. So I would want one of these guys gone so that we can get that chance. Who are you picking to be one of those guys?
I feel like this is definitely kind of looking off into the distance. For better or for worse, I don't see a change coming here anytime really soon.
Mm.
Um, outside of like injuries, but I don't think that's what the question is here. Um, into the future here, I see two guys that I'm kind of looking at going, I think these guys, for one way or another, will not be with the Red Wings when they're playing their final game of the season. Jeff Petrie, um, just kind of mentioned how he was a standout in a bad way against New Jersey. If he has enough games like that throughout the season, I don't know how you can justify having him in the lineup and a guy like Simon Edvinsson down in Grand Rapids, especially when you're still calling yourself a rebuilding team. And also, I think he's at 50% retained by Pittsburgh or Montreal, one of the two. Um, and then if the Red Wings can double retain him, so they send him somewhere else at like 1.7 million or whatever it would be. I think there'd be a buyer for that. I think he'd
Yeah.
be good depth at a small price tag like that. I think they'll find a suitor for that. And then the other guy that I look at is Shane Gostisbehere, actually. And the reason why I say Gostisbehere is he's on a 1 year deal, so it's kind of
Mhm.
easy just to be like, all right, he didn't sign for long term, so he's probably not going to be here long term. Um, but also that's what Oli Mata did last year, and he signed a 2 year extension. So, just because I'm saying Gostisbehere doesn't mean that it's not written in stone. But the other reason why I say Gostisbehere is because of the type of player he is and what role he fills. I mentioned how I think he's been a real solid addition to the power play. I think that he's kind of filling the spot that you hope Edvinsson fills,
Mhm.
whether it's right now or into the future. I think if Edvinsson is able to join the Red Wings roster at some point, show he belongs and show that he should not be sent back down to Grand Rapids. I think that he kind of pushes Gostisbehere down to a role where he's kind of just like an extra offensive defenseman. Um, like I said, Gostisbehere is in the role, in the spots, filling the roles right now that you want Edvinsson to fill, whether it's this season or next. So, if you're trying to make room for Edvinsson and make it not be just like the seventh defenseman, I think Gostisbehere is the one that you take out and plug Edvinsson
Mhm.
in. So, and also for what it's worth, just like Petrie with a retained salary, I think Gostisbehere would definitely have some interested parties in him, depending on price tag and all that good stuff. So it's interesting. I think um, with the Red Wings, how their roster looks right now, as much as it's like a little frustrating because they don't have any kids on the roster. Like they sent Berggren down, they don't even have
Yeah.
room on the roster for the kids that were on the team last year.
Yeah.
Um, they also are in a position to where um they can improve in the standings and still sell and still feasibly get better. That's honestly a pretty good spot to be in. You can still collect futures while also still being better in the present. Um, but the opportunity has to be there, right? So yeah, just to kind of loop back around. Gostisbehere and Petrie, I would say, are pretty easy ones to be like they'll be here for now, but when they're playing the final game of the season, I don't know if they'll be here
Mhm.
still.
Yeah, I'm thinking one maybe gone around the deadline. I mean, again, depending on where the Red Wings are, what their situation is, if they're close to the playoffs, I don't know if that's going to happen
Yep.
because you want as much depth on defense as possible. So I'm saying that that's not going to happen if they are playoff bound. But by the end of the season, end of the off season, next off season, whatever, one of them will be gone, I think, and you're going to have Edvinsson on the roster next season, and I do. You'd want him here, and that's. I mean, he looks so good. He's looked so good in the preseason, and of course, didn't make it. It's frustrating not to see that, but and especially when you look at some of the. I mean, it's only 2 games, but Petrie didn't look too good in that first game. And next, I mean, this past one, I didn't really notice him in a bad way. I mean, there were a few breakdowns from some of the other defensemen. I may have been one of them in the some of the odd man rushes, but it's you just want a guy like Edvinsson in the lineup because I think he's too good for the AHL. I mean, he's got to be up here. So we'll keep saying it. We'll keep saying it until it happens. All right, let's move to our off the rush. And Nate Danielson went down to junior. He was sent down. We were talking about him being a guy that could make the lineup, but again, not enough room. What are you projecting him to be in the WHL this season? Do you see another huge season, or is he going to take this as something that, I mean, sometimes you go back and you think you should have made a lineup and you have a bit of a lull to start a season. Do you see that happening with Danielson, or you think he'll just kind of hit the ground running in the dub?
Well, I know he scored a goal in his first game. And then I think he was pointless in his second game. I have every reason to believe that Danielson is gonna, be a beast this year. If he looked like he belonged against NHL players, you gotta think that he's gonna dominate against WHL players, junior players. But also, to your point, there's definitely kind of a letdown factor that maybe needs to be accounted for here. He definitely looked like he belonged, but wasn't a spot for him. And I know I'd be pretty disappointed if I was him. But now he's got to make the most of it with the Wheat Kings, right?
Yeah.
I think he's gonna have a really good season. He had 78 points in 68 games last season, with a pretty mediocre team too, right? I think a lot of it will come down to his supporting cast in terms of how good of a season he can have, at least statistically. Um, but I don't think he's gonna have, I think he'll have a season to where, people are still really excited about him. When he's done with his WHL season. I kind of foresee that he'll be playing his final games of the season with the Griffins too, for what it's worth.
I see that. I mean, Danielson, I think he's a guy that, we've talked about his character and how hard he works. I don't think he's going to have a huge thing. The fact that he's scored already to start, I think it's fine. I think he'll be fine. But and he's going to have a good chance of being on the World Junior team as well.
Yep.
That's going to be a big thing for him. I think it was the right decision, even though I would have loved him to have the 9 games and all that. But fact is, Red Wings didn't have the room, and if he did play, I think he'd probably play not a lot of minutes. I don't think he'd get a lot of minutes. So better for his development, move to the dub, and just keep going and developing there. There's no rush to get him up here. So I'll be excited to follow him throughout the season again as we go. But Devin, we've got positive things that in this past couple games. I guess the Red Wings are 1-1, but to finish off, they do have, how many games they got here? 2 games before we will meet again here. Play the Blue Jackets on Monday, and they play the Penguins on Wednesday. Predictions: is there going to be what is the record when we get into our next show here? Are they sporting that 3? What my math here? 2 wins,
3-1,
3-1, or something else. I mean, the Blue Jackets just won this past game. Penguins have gotten off to an okay start. What do you say?
I see a win against Columbus. I know Merzlikins just left with an injury, so they're down their starting goaltender. I'd like to see them get on Spencer Martin pretty quick, assuming Martin's the guy who starts for Columbus. So I'd like to say that should be a W for the Red Wings, but you never know. It could be a trap game.
Yeah.
And then the Penguins, I'm gonna say it's also a W. I think that one's gonna be another pretty good test for the Red Wings, just like the Devils and the Lightning were. But I'll say that they come out ahead. I'm pretty sure the game against the Blue Jackets is in Columbus, and then the game against the Penguins is in Detroit.
Yep.
I'll say that the hometown crowd gives the Red Wings the boost they need to overcome the Penguins.
Yeah, I mean, especially from what we saw in the first game here, that crowd was engaged throughout the whole game. I loved it, and it's great to see that again. I mean, it's excitement. I mean, you got to, yes, it's only been 2 games, but
Remember 2 or 3 seasons ago? God, 3 seasons ago when we were using fake crowd noise. God,
Oh
I
yeah.
never want to go back to that
No,
again.
no, real crowd noise is the best. And as just before we finished, I love that segment when they were talking to DeBrincat's parents and how
Mhm.
much they love that he's in Detroit now and that they can see him a lot more and see all the home games rather than traveling around. It's great. And the fact that he's got 3 goals already,
Yeah.
he fits in totally into this lineup. And I don't know if we had any doubts that he wouldn't, but it's great to see that he's got off to such a positive start in his Red Wings career. So a lot more to come. He's on pace for, I love on pace numbers this early in the season, but he's on pace for like what, over 50 goals.
123.
Yeah, right. Oh, right. It's even crazier.
I say he does it.
Yeah, and we'll be talking at the end of the season. We got 100 goal season.
And
No.
somehow Austin Matthews still scored more.
Yeah. Well, he's off to another crazy start too. Almost Brock Besser with his 4 goals already.
Yep.
Or more when I don't know how many he may score tonight too, but we'll see. But before we leave here, I remind you of our Substacks again. Hockey Writers, we've recently expanded our offerings with the Substack. It's dedicated to every NHL team as well. It's a general one for the best articles on the site. As a Red Wings fan, you don't want to miss any of this great content that we produce here. Red Wings Stack makes that possible. Sign up to get all the Hockey Writers Red Wings articles delivered directly to your inbox multiple times a week. That's for free, but we also offer a premium subscription that gives you access to exclusive content you can't find anywhere else, including game chats, post-game reports, specialized articles, live Q&As, and more. Join now to get a discount on the annual subscription, and a sign-up link can be found in that video description below. Devin, thanks for joining another grind line. We hopefully have a lot more wins to talk about as in episodes to come, and a lot more DeBrincat goals. But until next time, we will see you on another episode of the Grind Line.